Looking at the immune system poses the same challenge that the endocrine system did, since the immune system is not located in any one part of the body, but is distributed fairly widely over the body. However, there are multiple places where we can find a definite immune function, and the first one, a little surprisingly, is the skin. So the skin separates us from our external environment, and the entirety of it, known as the integumentary system, has multiple functions, but among those is preventing dehydration, keeping us warm, and making a barrier to the outside world so that pathogens don't have easy access to our bodies. Another surprising place where immune activity takes place is in the bones. The bones are actually part of the immune system. In particular, the long portion of the bone contains a marrow cavity. And the marrow cavity is a place where the hematopoietic tissues are located. Those are the cells that make blood. And in addition to red blood cells, they also make the precursors to most of our white or immune cells as well. Now, the long bones are a major site of hematopoiesis in the young, but that gradually shifts to other bones in the adult, like the sternum and the bodies of the vertebrae. So we can see here that we've got those cavities within, and that is where blood cell formation, both red cell and white blood cell formation, is going to occur to a fairly high degree in the adult. There are many different kinds of white blood cells. We have things called neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils, but we also have lymphocytes that are going after very specific targets. B lymphocytes release antibodies, and T lymphocytes have many functions, but one thing that's special about T lymphocytes is that they mature in another one of our immune organs called the thymus. The thymus is located superior to the heart and just anterior to the great vessels, and it's kind of a tough to find organ because it looks a lot like the fat that's located in that same area. But the thymus has a right and a left lobe, and it is going to be the place where T cells mature and become cytotoxic T cells, helper T cells, or other specialized types of T cells that fight off specific antigens. There are some places in the body that are very exposed to the external environment, and no big surprise, our nasal cavity, oral cavity, where we take in air and food, is a major site where infectious material and pathogens can spread in. So as that material moves into our body, we want to screen for those pathogens, and we have a variety of permanent immune tissues located in this area, such as the pharyngeal tonsil here at the back of the nasopharynx. This is also sometimes called an adenoid, so if you hear that term, it's referring to the pharyngeal tonsil here. On the left and right, we have a palatine tonsil, just here between the soft palate and the epiglottis. And if you ever hear about someone having their tonsils taken out, most of the time they're referring to that removal of these palatine tonsils. There are also tonsillar tissues around the eustachian tube here and the tongue, so we have some lingual tonsils as well. And there can be other smaller areas with tonsillar tissue here, but those are the major ones: the lingual, the palatine, and the pharyngeal tonsils. Now, other immune cells are scattered throughout the gut tube because it's still dealing with the external environment. So all throughout our gut tube we have what's known as MALT. And MALT is mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue. Now, not just the gut, but also the respiratory tract and the urogenital tract, any place in our body that's in contact, even if it's very indirectly, with the external environment, is going to have populations of immune cells that arise and drift away and grow and respond to immune challenges that appear along the way. So we'll find that MALT, again, mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue, in the various parts of the body. One exception to it being not permanent is in the ileum. The ileum, even though we can't see it here, has at its microscopic level a group of immune cells gathered inside it called Peyer's patches or ileal patches. Now, these are present throughout the ileum. They're not generally visible from the outside because they're inside the lumen here, but they can often make large bumps on the inside of the lumen that are visible and distinguish it as the ileum. So we've seen that there are diffuse immune organs located throughout the body. We've got the skin forming a barrier with the outside. We've got the tonsils and MALT forming a barrier with the linings of the body. But we have other immune organs as well. In addition to the thymus, we've got the spleen here in the upper left quadrant of the abdomen. So here we can see that the spleen is on the upper left side of the abdomen right here, and it has two major functions. One is going to be that the red pulp of the spleen recycles old red blood cells that have gotten brittle or inflexible, and it's going to break them down and send their heme groups and iron to the liver, where they're going to be stored until they need to be used again thereafter. But in addition to the red pulp, the spleen, if we were to cut it open, would have what's called white pulp as well. So the spleen contains white pulp, and that is immune tissue that screens the blood itself for bloodborne pathogens or cells that are infected by viruses, and it's going to remove those cells from circulation, and the B and T lymphocytes that are in the spleen will then mount an immune response to those circulating pathogens. So we've got a way to screen the body for invaders from the outside, invaders in the blood, but the only thing we're missing is a way to screen the intercellular space. And that is the job of a very diffuse group of organs known as lymph nodes. And we're going to be spending some time with the various clusters of lymph nodes throughout the body. But they are going to be screening the lymphatic fluid, which is gathered from the intracellular space. It's going to have a lot of viral and bacterial debris. Antigen-presenting cells can migrate to these lymph nodes, and then again, B and T lymphocytes here can recognize those antigens, mount an immune response, and fight those infections off if they are spreading by way of those lymphatic channels.